All right, let me go ahead. Okay, everybody. Okay, welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through Bhagavad Gita. This is chapter number 16. We're doing verses 4 through 11. We're going to have two readings of the text in English, followed by Yogeshwar, and then we'll open it up for any comments, questions from everybody else. All right, so if you can have Ambika read chapter 16 from 4 to 11, please. Thank you.
Vanity, boastfulness, and conceit, wrath and harshness, and ignorant self-delusion are the property of the man born into the Asura nature. The Daivic wealth of character is regarded as a means for liberation, and the Asuric for bondage. Grieve not, O Pandava, Arjuna, thou art born in the Deva nature. Two other types of created beings in this world, Daiva, divine, and Asura, demoniac. The Daiva has been spoken of in detail. Hear now from me of the Asura, O Partha, Arjuna. The Asuric people do not know either pravriti or nivriti, what should be done and what avoided, or how nature fulfills and how withdraws. Neither clean living, nor right conduct, and observance, nor even truth is pertinent to them. The world, they say, is without God, untrue, unfounded, a becoming without causal link, just for desire. What else? Leaning on this view, ruining their souls, these men of little understanding and violent deeds rise up with ill will for the destruction of the world. Resorting to insatiable desire, possessed of arrogance and conceit and pride drunkenness, holding on to wrong and evil things by delusion, unclean in their resolves, they pursue their active life. Given to measurelessly unceasing care and anxiety up to the end of their life, they are decided that only enjoyment of desire is all that is their supreme aim.
Thank you. David, please.
Yes. Pseudo-religiosity, pretentious pride, conceitful arrogance, anger, harshness, and ignorance arise in one born of the demoniac nature, O Arjuna. The divine nature is considered the cause of liberation, and the demoniac nature the cause of bondage. Do not worry, O Arjuna, you were born of the divine nature. There are only two types of created beings in the material worlds, the divine and the demoniac. The divine has been described extensively. Now hear from me, O Arjuna, of the demoniac. Persons of demoniac nature cannot understand actions in their best spiritual interests and actions in their worst spiritual interests. There is never purity, nor good conduct, nor even truth in them. The persons of demoniac nature say the entire cosmic manifestation is unreal, without a creator, without a supreme controller, without cause, originating from mutual cohabitation only to lust, no more than this. Accepting this version, the demoniac, being deficient in spiritual intelligence, have lost contact with their soul, degradedly engaged in abominable activities to influence the destruction of the universe. Addicted to insatiable lusts, the demoniac, irrational due to arrogance, vanity, and conceit, out of illusion, endeavor for the impairment thing, engaging in impure acts by premeditated vows.
Thank you, David. Yogeshwar.
दम्भोदर्पोऽभिमानश्च क्रोधः पारुष्यमेव च ज्ञानं चाभिजातस्य पार्थ सम्पदमासुरीम्. Dambha, normally which is translated as hypocrisy, whereby we are showing to the world what we want to show. We're not showing ourselves to the world. Inside ourselves, we are something else. We are what we are. But then when we interact with the world, when we interact with someone else in the world, we show them a face that they would like to see. In that way, we do not change ourselves from the within. We only change ourselves from the outside, because that's how we should interact with the world. These types of qualities are now the Asuri qualities, which Krishna is pointing out. Where does Dambha come in? Dambha or hypocrisy comes whereby a person knows what should be done, but then they find a shortcut way for it to be done. The shortcut is, rather than change myself from the inside, which is quite difficult and it takes some time, I can just change myself from the outside and then show what I am not. As long as it works for now, that's fine. That is Dambha. If it works for now, it is fine. I don't need to do the long term. So where you're not seeing the long term, whereby if it just works for now, it's fine. That is Dambha. Because now you're going to use that image wherever it helps you. And if you know that that's just an image, then there's no transformation coming by. Darpaha. Now, Darpaha and the next quality, which is Abhimana. These two are quite related, whereby Darpaha means arrogance, whereby there are so many qualities within yourself. It's not that there are not any qualities. There are qualities within yourself. But then in arrogance, what you're trying to do is you're trying to show the qualities to somebody else. Those qualities are not in you. Those are the ones that you're trying to show outside. Darpa is, in a way, I do not have some qualities. I am void of those qualities. And I know those are good qualities. What I'm going to do in such a situation is I am going to try to show to somebody else that I do have these qualities. When you try to show that I do have such qualities within myself, then what happens is from the within, you stay empty. And then you try to show these qualities from the outside. And Abhiman, on the other side, means that you do have the qualities that you are showing to the outside, but you're putting so much value onto those qualities rather than the value that is supposed to be given to those qualities. That subtle difference between both of them, like Darpaha and Abhimana. Darpaha meaning you want to show qualities that are not in you, and Abhimana meaning you are showing qualities that are in you, but then you boast over them, like you boast over them. This is something so good about me that I am on top of the world. That is Abhimana. Then Krodha, as we normally know, that is wrath, or even the anger that we get. When we're talking about that anger, because we've already talked about all these in great detail in whereby Krishna says akrodha in the Devi Sampada. So that anger to be shown in all levels, whether it is towards somebody else through your speech, through your actions, or through your mind as well. That is Asuri Sampada. Then Krishna is talking about Parushyam. Now, Parushyam in this context is next to anger, but then it is harshness towards somebody else. Maybe you're not angry towards them, but then you yourself, because anger is something that comes and goes, but then Parushyam is something that is always there. We know some, like in our experience, there's some people who are like, even though they're not angry, but they're always harsh towards other people. Their tone is always up, and even their way of talking and the way they show action while they're talking is always harsh. In that way as well, that is the harshness that is being talked about by Parushyam. Parushyam may look like as if it is anger, like the harshness may feel like it's anger, but this type of anger is put into the swabhava of the person. Ajnanam. Ajnanam here normally is translated into ignorance. One thing we normally say when we're talking about ignorance is a person who does not know. Now, when we talk about a person who does not know, it doesn't literally mean they do not know anything. Like in Sanskrit, there's so many ways of negating. There's not only one way of negating. When we say jnanam and then we negate by ajnanam, we are not completely negating that there is no jnana in that person. Like he does not know anything. What ajnanam means is he knows something, but that knowing is opposite to knowing. Not in the way that it negates knowing, like it's ignorance. He's like a person who doesn't know anything. It's not about that. It's about a person who knows in the wrong way. He has understood concepts in another way than what the truth is. He has gotten concepts within his mind that do not come at par with what reality is. That is ajnanam. Ajnanam is not that which we normally put by not knowing totally, like a person who is like a baby, let's say. That type of ajnanam is something else. But the type of ajnanam that Krishna here is talking about is that ajnanam. It's not like a baby who doesn't know anything, but it is like a full grown person knows things, but then knows them in the opposite way of how they're supposed to be known. Such qualities, Chabijhatasya, Partha Sampadamasurim, such qualities are of those people who are of the Asuri nature. Devi Sampat Vimokshaya Nibandhaya Surimata Masucha Sampadam Devim Abhijhato Sipandava. This is the verse where Krishna is making the distinction between the Devi Sampat and the Asuri Sampat. Devi Sampat Vimokshaya. When you know what the truth is or what reality is, knowing it understanding it allows you to be free from it, allows you never to get attached to it. That is what Devi Sampati is. The Devi wealth is that which allows you to get none attached to it. Nibandhaya Surimata. Krishna is saying here that which binds you or which makes you attached to anything, that is Asuri. And Asuri is meant for that, something that attaches you rather than frees you. Masucha Sampadam Devim Abhijhatosi Pandava. So, talking about something that frees you rather than binds you, just to give an example that we normally experience within our lives is, we may normally think that something makes us free, but normally that making us free, what we think, is normally binding us. For example, when you want to do something like change our habits, what do we normally do? We want to change our habits, that's fine. Now, getting free from this habit is our goal. What we normally do is get attached to another habit. That is not freedom. We may think it's freedom because it frees us from one. But what we have to see in the long term is that it binds us to another. That is still not the right way of approaching it. What the right way of approaching this is getting free, not from one, but getting free from all. That is true freedom. And whenever we're talking about getting free and then we get bound to another, that's always the Asuri Sampradaya. That's always the wrong way of approaching it. When we are on the wrong way of approaching it, when we are always thinking about how to get free in the short term, then we'll also always be bound, because the short term in so many ways does not consider the long term. For example, these small techniques that we always want to know about. When we are angry, what small technique can I do that my anger just dissolves? Or when I'm bored, what small technique can I do that I just feel rejuvenated? So what happens is we do these small techniques that help us get out of this short-term anger. But then we do not consider the long-term, whereby why are we getting angry? Like getting to the cause and then removing the cause from its roots. When we're not doing that, when we're only putting up habits that now will just allow us for the short term to get away from anger, not knowing that we'll get angry the next time, and then we'll have to use this technique again. Rather, the approach should be that we should try to find the cause, what the cause is, and then again find out why the cause arises. When we are thinking about the cause and then why the cause arises, then we are thinking about the long term. What happens in such a situation is you may not be able to control your anger in 1 or 2 instances directly right now, but it helps in the long term, whereby you're able to get to the cause in some time. Maybe it takes 2 months, 3 months, or even 6 months to get to the cause. When you've gotten to the cause, then getting to the cause of that, why that arises, and getting to why, and then getting to why that happens now, the cause of the cause. And dealing with that, it is hard, and it needs concentration, it needs patience, and normally we don't have that patience. We don't have that type of concentration. So what shall we do? We shall go for these small things that help us right now. And what we need to understand is not everything that helps us in the short term is meant for the long term, or is meant to be real per se, is meant to be true. That is the difference between Devi Sampad and Asuri Sampad. Asuri Sampad will always bind you, and Devi Sampad will always allow you to be free. Sometimes you may feel that having done something short term, you are free. But then in the long term, you're not seeing that it is binding you. For example, somebody who wants to say something that is untrue or is false, that person may feel that he is getting away from such a situation by saying the false, by saying something that is untrue. But then he's not considering that he is getting bound mentally and externally by his words as well for the long term. And when somebody starts seeing that, then he's getting the gist of what Devi and Asuri is. He is getting to understand which type of qualities help me get to the Devi. For example, that which needs patience for the long term, that which allows me to wait and concentrate and look for what is true, rather than go on to something that helps me right now just for the short term. And then Krishna is continuing on the same verse that Masucha Sampadam Devim Abhijatosi Pandava. Don't worry, Arjuna, you are of Devi Sampad. You should not think that you are of Asuri Sampad. Normally, sometimes how people take this is just like a pat on the back. Like Krishna is just saying that, oh, don't worry, you are Devi Sampad, even though Arjuna is not. That's not what Krishna would say. Like Krishna is a person who is of the truth. He doesn't tell someone that, oh, you are Devi Sampad just for now, like just for the sake of it. Krishna is not such a person. Krishna is a person who says what is supposed to be said and when it is true, not when it is false. Analyzing what Arjuna is, who Arjuna is, what type of qualities he has. One thing to say is he is considerate of what he is doing. He's not thinking about what his emotions say or what should be done right now, just right now. He's thinking about the long term, like the questions he is asking in chapter 2, in chapter 1 as well, that what will I gain from doing this war? Because what a person like Bhima may think, or a person like Duryodhana may think, considering what Duryodhana may think, that this war is something that we should do. Why? Because I do not want to give this much land to the Pandavas. I do not want Pandavas to have an established kingdom anywhere. I would rather have them just go to the forest. Considering that and putting perspective to Duryodhana and Arjuna, Arjuna is saying that why have this war which would kill so many people, I would rather not have a kingdom in such a circumstance. In those ways, he is pointing towards the Devi Sampat. Also in the way that he does not want that much hinsa, that much of human slaughter to happen. He is considerate of people, like he's thinking about people and what their lives mean. What does a person alive mean? And what does that person dead mean? He knows the weight of that. He knows what it means to say that this many people will die in this war. He's considerate about that. And when a person is not considerate about a person's life, that is when we would say that person is asuri. On the other hand, Arjuna is considerate about this concept, this perspective of life. That it's not just to say that so many people will die, but I know what it means when so many people are dying in a war. And as well, I also know what it feels like for people who are not in the war, but will be affected by the war. People who are there right now and people who will be born after the war. There will be consequences that they have to face, yet they were not even involved in the war. Arjuna is considerate about that. Thinking about all those concepts, you understand that Arjuna has a question that has weight, and it has weight on the Devi Sampat. It's not that he's just trying to to make up some questions from nowhere just because he doesn't want to fight. He has some fundamental questions. He has some questions that are touching his heart, that are not allowing him to go to war. It's not that he doesn't want to fight that is making up questions. Rather, it is that he has these questions that is unable to fight. Whereas some person like Duryodhana, those questions that don't arise, that's why he's just able to go to war. That is something to think about. Having such questions, in essence, is the Devi Sampat. Sampat, which is the main context of this whole chapter, could be translated to two different translations. Sampat, in a way, because it is just another way of saying sampatti. Sampatti and sampat. So sampatti is translated as wealth. That wealth with which you can get freedom. That wealth with which you can get non-attachment. That is Devi. And that wealth with which you can get attached is the Asuri Sampat. And wealth is an example whereby if you want to buy something in India, you have to have the currency of India. You have to have the wealth of India. Like you have to have the rupees within that work with India. When you want to get something that is Devi, when you want to get freedom, then you have to have the currency of freedom. You have to have that which relates to freedom. You can't buy freedom with that which doesn't relate to freedom, rather relates to attachment. I understand that these qualities do not really relate to buying, like you can't buy them out. But in essence, you have to have such qualities that are Devi, so that other qualities such as freedom can manifest automatically. You have to give an environment whereby these other qualities manifest. within yourself. And while you don't give that environment, which helps freedom to manifest, you're always going to allow attachment to manifest within your mental space, within your heart, within yourself. And that mental space, that space is really important. That's why Sampad is also translated to another way, whereby you differentiate it by Padam. The whole word is Sampad. And Pada means a state or sthiti. When you translate Pada as state or sthiti, then on the other side, Sampada means a state in which you are, and that state helps you to get to more. That is Devi Sampad. And Asuri Sampad is a state in which you are that helps you get even lower than you are. It just helps you to get to those realms or those emotions that always take you towards attachment.
Yogeshwar, can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
I find this use of sampatti, that is wealth, in this context really revealing. What Krishna is saying is that true wealth is inner wealth, because the moment people think about wealth, they always think of external. What he's saying is that Daivi Sampatti or Asuri Sampatti is the wealth that you have inside as your is virtuousness, which is going to produce everything else. So it's a concept of inner wealth. So I find that really, really profound. Thank you.
So Krishna is now continuing. Do bhuta sarvo lokesmin deva asura evacha devo vistarasha prokta asuram partha me shrinu. There are only two types of people in this world. Those two types are, one is Asuri and another is Deva. Deva has been said in great detail. Now I will talk about the Asura. I'll talk about those who are always trying to go towards those types of qualities that allow them to get attached. They may, in essence, may be thinking that I am getting freedom or I am getting revelation of a different kind. But if you think about their whole life, if you think about what they are doing, then in essence, they are just getting bound more and more without them knowing that I'm getting bound. Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha jana na vidurasuraha na saucham na pichacharo na satyam teshu vidyate. One thing that they do not know is what pravritti is and what nivritti is. Pravritti meaning action and nivritti meaning inaction. That is the literal translation. Now, getting into what it actually means, what action really means, and what inaction really means. When Krishna will say sannyasa and will say that a person who has reached such a level of knowledge doesn't have to do any action. He is krita krityascha bharata, as is mentioned in the end of chapter 15. What that person will do is, oh yes, I do not need to do anything now. I have already done everything that I need to do, and will now not do any action, and will think I am in nivritti, like I have become inactive in a good way. That's what he will think. what is in essence being said here is, you do not know nivrutti if you're just becoming inactive by these words. Because in essence, you are not inactive in any way. You are breathing, and even sitting or laying down, which you'll be doing, will be an action. And the thoughts that you will be having in your mind will also be action. Nothing there is void of action. That is just the outside saying that I am inactive, like I don't have to do anything now. So this is the way of not doing anything, is just not doing anything. That will be from the outside, that you're not doing anything. Rather, knowing what inaction is, in true sense, is knowing when your thoughts can just dissolve into consciousness. And in that way, when there are no thoughts in your mind, like when you're just in that state of just knowing what reality is, just perceive what reality is, and no thoughts of your own, no concepts of your own, just knowing. In that state whereby there are no thoughts of your own, it's just receiving from what the world has. What the world is, you're just perceiving. In that state where there are no thoughts of your own, there's no action of your own, you're just allowing the action of Brahman to take place within yourself. That is the true inaction, whereby you will be there, this body will be there, your mind will be there, and the action will just flow from within yourself. Now, that will be perceived as pravrutti by somebody else. Yet, that is not pravrutti. What you're talking about, pravrutti or action, is just from the outside that you're seeing it. That this person is active or is in action right now. Rather, look at from within. He does not have any action happening, neither in thoughts, not even bodily. It's just flowing from within. For example, somebody who has a talent, who has a hobby, action flows from within. He does not have to do any action. And when you ask him, like, do you need to think so much about this, or while you're doing this, he'll just say, things are just flowing from within. That's the experience they're having. And that experience is the true inaction that is being talked about. And then talking about pravrutti, doing things is what people will say as pravrutti, like, oh, action. I should be doing things. If somebody is not doing anything, or then he's just lazy, he just doesn't want to do anything. But then, if you do not know what real action is, real action in the essence that that action takes you towards the truth, rather than taking you towards being bound, being attached. That which is true action takes you towards freedom, takes you towards moksha, takes you towards liberation from all the types of attachment that you have. That is the true action. That is the true type of action that somebody is supposed to be doing. Now, these subtle differences, the asura do not know. What we mean by they do not know is that it's not that they do not have a concept, what they feel like, what action and inaction is. They have a concept, but that concept is wrong. In that perspective, they do not know what the truth is. They do not know what action and inaction is. Why don't they know? Because they're just looking from the perspective of the body, Like, is the body active or is it inactive? Or is the mind active or is it inactive? Whereby the mind could be active, but if it's constantly going towards the truth, if it's constantly going towards freedom, then that is the real type of action that is supposed to be done, rather than just considering the bodily action that is supposed to be done. I am not saying that you should not do any bodily action. You should be doing bodily action and mental action and all type of action. It's just the flow in which it's going, or the direction in which it's going. Is it true? Then it is the real type of action. If it's going in a different direction or the opposite direction, then that is not the real type of action. That is not the real type of inaction as well. Na socham, na pichachar, na satyam teshu vidyate. Na socham, meaning they do not have purity within themselves. They do not know what being pure means. They do not know what being clean means. What they will feel like clean means is just from the outside, or just what the bodily cleanliness means. Rather, Yoga Sutras will say cleanliness is something that not only from the outside, but abhyantar meaning from the inside. Cleanliness from the inside as well. From the inside, I don't mean like inside organs, but then I mean the mind, cleanliness of the mind, the mental activity, cleanliness of thoughts. Now, when you have cleanliness of thoughts, there's a specific type of thoughts that will prevail within your mind. Not each and every type of thought will just be able to come within your mental space. There will be just a specific type of flow that will happen. That is being clean in your thoughts. And also, being clean also means knowing all the type of thoughts that are going in within your mind. No thought goes in within your mind without you knowing that this thought is happening, or you acknowledging that this thought should happen. There's so many times we talk about something, and then when somebody tells us that you say this, we are also in doubt. Did I say it or did I not say it? Then we have to think, did I really say it from the within? And did I really mean it? Did I really know what I was saying at the moment? That, then what we need to introspect is, do I really know all my thoughts? And then, am I really clean in all my thoughts? Or are my thoughts just dazzling around, just moving in a random direction? Because moving them in a random direction means that they're always clashing with each other. They're always just hovering through. And in that time, there is no cleanliness, there's no neatness of thoughts. At that point in time, Krishna is saying those people do not know what true purity is, true cleanliness is. Na pichachar. They also do not know what achara is. Achara means maryada. And maryada in that instance means something like how you're supposed to behave in front of other people, how you're supposed to behave in society, how you're supposed to behave with even yourself in one room alone. And behavior should also be known in that perspective as well. Now, what they think behavior is just how to interact with other people. They'll just read in some books, or they'll just try out something that works at this moment in time. And what they will take out of that is what works for them at that point in time is just the right thing. But they will not inspect what is the right thing. How am I supposed to behave? Am I just supposed to say the truth just because it's written that I should say the truth? Or am I supposed to say the truth because truth is a value, it's a quality that I possess? Not just that truth is in my mouth or that truth is in my mind, but that truth comes out from somewhere deep within myself. And I can't say anything apart from the truth. Is it the only time when I'm saying the truth that I am truthful? Or is it that I personally am truthful? So those distinctions are not meant. They only feel that what truth is only something that you do at one point in time. They do not know the perspectives of truthfulness in the whole of their life. That truthfulness is what is supposed to be so. So they do not know what behavior is, and they also do not know what truth is, because they take truth only for the words that are true, rather than taking it from the inside, what truthfulness is for its own sake. Asatyam pratishtham te jagadahuranishwaram aparaspara sambhutam imanyat kamahaitukam. One thing about Devi and Asuri that we have already talked about is Deva, as we had talked about in chapter 7 as well. Devaha means something that you hold on to, and that in which you see the ultimate. Now, for example, maybe if it's the sun, or it's the wind, or it's even a plant, like you hold on to it. Why? Not just for its existence, or not just for its appearance, not just for its form, but you hold on to it because you feel the ultimate from within that. That is Deva. In the same way here, Deva is something now inside yourself. Such quality within yourself that you can hold on to, and you see the ultimate within that. And Asura is something that if you hold on to that, you'll never have a glimpse of what the ultimate is within yourself as well. Now, the Devi Sampad and Asuri Sampad are being talked about in the context of the inside now, the qualities of a person here, rather than just holding on to something from the outside. Now, these are mental qualities, even more than mental, because mental would just mean thoughts. But these are not just thoughts. These are some things that you possess for life, and they are part of you integrally. Having made that distinction, now something that you can hold on to from the within, and it takes you towards the ultimate. It takes you towards that glimpse that shows you that there is something beyond just appearance. There's something beyond what you just perceive with your normal 5 senses or even your thoughts. That is what Deva means. What we normally, how normally this verse is translated is, if you believe that God exists, then you're in the Devi. If you don't believe that God exists, then you're in the Asuri. But what I would like to do is make even a subtler distinction between that. Not just if you believe or you don't believe. The distinction here should be that asatyam pratishtamte jagadahuranishwaram. Not just that you believe or you don't believe that God is or God is not. The distinction here is that, do you hold on to something that takes you towards the ultimate? Do you also experience that something ultimate exists out of what is manifest? Do you also see the unmanifest in the manifest? Now that seeing or that experiencing is what Krishna is saying here, not just saying or believing. What I would rather say is, sometimes when you believe, what happens is this belief is enough, and then it obstructs you from knowing what the truth is or even experiencing the truth. So even believing that it is like God is just here and it's just happening and everything is just by logic, sometimes it brings a wall about. And what will happen is you will just continue in those routines. You'll never experience what the ultimate is. You'll never know what the unmanifest is. Because what you're saying that God exists, what it's based upon is just the manifest. It's like you're saying that because the manifest exists, God exists. It's not that. It's because God exists that the manifest exists. It's because the ultimate exists that the manifest exists. How you look at this perspective is really important. It's not just about it. And then there are also some times whereby being truthful to yourself, that I have not experienced something out of the world. So until I experience it, I will have a view that I am open to anything. And that openness to everything that can take you towards what is true rather than the closed. Because what happens is when you're closed to any concept, I would say, whether it is that exists or doesn't exist, you're getting closed into that. Like you're closing the doors of reality. What you're not going to do now is look for the other being possible. Because if you look for the other being possible, you also know that if I am saying that the ultimate doesn't exist, maybe it exists, like being open to that, not only logically or mentally, but being open to it through existence, like experientially as well. Trying to get beyond what you have experienced so far. In that way, you're saying that maybe I have not experienced. And since I've not experienced, until now, I do not know of existence. But when I know, I will accept it. That is rather a kind of openness towards what existence is, rather than just being clogged onto that existence, like ultimate exists. And then you're not open for the rest of your life. You're just closed within that gate. And then you do not know what existence is or what the ultimate is, but now you just have made your own concepts around it. That is now even more deteriorating of your mind or deteriorating of your own experiences. It just takes you down rather than allow you to flower onto what you truly are. You wanted to say
Yogeshwar?
something?
Yes. Can we take a short break? So I want to make sure that everybody is on board on what is being said. So I just want to make a comment, and I want to invite anybody to make comments on the material so far or ask any questions. One of the big things I'm getting from everything you're saying, that these are about natures. This is Daivi nature and Asuric nature. This is not about what you think you are or what you think you believe. It is what is contained in your action. How your actions are full, what your actions are full of. Are your actions full of love for the center, or are your actions full of attachment to periphery? So it is about that and not about what a person is saying. So that's a big distinction that I see. Folks, go ahead and type exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom if you would like to ask a question or make comments so far, and then we will go to the next set. Joe, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Yogeshwar. I think that actually this is making a lot of sense for me as far as I'm able to connect a lot of things as far as how emotions, and I get coming back to what Shrikant said. I think that it's essentially, this is about managing your own personal character, how you act in the world. And how you act in the world is related to, essentially your arrogance, your anger, whether you're rude or not, all these emotions, and how that's essentially what we're talking about is wisdom in a way. And one of those requirements for wisdom is in order that you must be open to the ultimate, and that, or acknowledge the ultimate, I should actually say, more than open to the ultimate. And that this allows you to seek truth. Am I understanding that correctly? That's the one aspect of it where I'm a little bit unclear, is this relationship between the idea of the ultimate and truth. And how do you essentially arrive at that? So is that a clear question, or should I make it
It would be better if you could rephrase it a bit.
Yeah, so I mean, it says you're mentioning how openness takes you towards the truth, and essentially that your acknowledging of the ultimate is required in that process. So I was just wondering if you could explain that a little bit more in detail.
Yes, so in that context, I would like to put it like this, that truth is what ultimate is. Right? There's no any other truth apart from that.
Okay.
Whatever you're doing now, out of your openness towards the ultimate, is the truth. You're showing truth through yourself. You're walking the path of truth because you accept the truth. And truth is both. It's also a path and is also what you'll get as the ultimate. Because what we are right now, even sometimes we are also untruthful to ourselves as well. We want to do something, but then we do something else. In a way, we are untruthful to ourselves as well. How shall we be truthful to reality itself, like the ultimate itself? Being truthful to reality itself, or the ultimate, is just allowing yourself to walk the path, allowing yourself to be open to search that there is something that is unmanifest between the manifest as well. And that is what it is.
Very good. Next up is Steve. Steve, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Yeah, I wanted to ask you two different questions. One was, you talked a lot about being in the flow and kind of as a sign that you're on the right path. And I think you had mentioned it, but a little bit here and there, but maybe if you could just give some more signs that you are in this so-called flow. And then also the second thing is just, I think you maybe try to say it in different ways, but then sometimes I'm not sure. But my feeling is, it's talking about being more centered, right, toward yourself and what is the truth, right? How yeah. And then you talk about the suras and the other phrase I forget, so one more external material and the other, the opposite. When I think of somebody who just goes up to the mountain top and meditates, it's going to be easier, much easier for them to have this centered. But when they're in the middle of the world with all the actions going on for them, it's a lot harder to do that. But it just seems to me that that would be more the ultimate, right? So maybe the asuras, although that's not what you want to be, you can't run away from it either. So maybe the ultimate test is to be in the asuras, but not of the asuras, if that makes sense. But anyway, I'll be quiet now.
Thank you, Steve. Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yeah, so one thing to know about this is it's not that when you're that concept about going into the mountains and that's the only place whereby you can feel nearer to the ultimate, rather you can't do it here. And even not about can or can't, even about talking about the difficulty which you face when you go there rather than when you are here. I would say that is not really true about the difficulty as well, leave alone can't and can. Because difficulty is measured upon what your swabhava is. It's not about what that thing is, it's about rather what you are. So what we are is that we can't go there up in the mountains and find the truth. What will happen rather is that we'll get away from the truth more. What will happen is when we go there, we'll have that many difficulties in our life. We'll not be able to stay there. And what will happen is we'll always remember what we left. And that remembrance, if it's always there, that doesn't help us to go far on the path of the ultimate. That will always allow us to cling back to the attachments. So you're going away from the attachments physically, but getting attached to them mentally. How good is that? Rather, I would say that for us in this time and day, it's really easy to stay between this and pursue what the ultimate is, whereby that which is that which we are seeing around us doesn't weigh back us through memory. It weighs back us through our daily actions, but then also making those daily actions slowly by slowly towards the ultimate, towards what the truth is, changing our lives from the within, so that what we are showing outside, which is our behavior or how we relate to other people, also changes from the within. That is more important, I feel, that will take us towards the ultimate even faster than running away from what we have to do right now.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. Yogeshwar, I had one question. We discussed the three gunas, sattva gun, rajas, and tamas. How does the daivi and asuri sampatti relate to the three gunas?
So what we'll normally have here is sattva gun is the Devi Sampat, because Devatas are always taken towards the Sattva Gun. What the Asuri Gunas are, they are all the Tamasic Gunas. Now, what we have to realize here is Krishna is making a great distinction between them. Like, this is Devi and this is Asuri. And Krishna is saying that Arjuna is Devi, or people are Devi and people are Asuri. What we need to realize in essence is within ourselves, when you're talking about qualities, then we have both of them within ourselves, even at this point in time. It's not like we are only full of one type of quality. We're full of both type of qualities, and we are in our actions, in our thinking, trying to go to one side rather than the other. So both qualities are there within us. What the point of Krishna here is which quality is prominent within yourself. And that quality, which either it's Devic or Asuric, it will decide whether you are in a certain state, which I mean the Sattva Guni state, at one point in time, or will you be in a Tamoguni state at another point in time? So what happens is when these two meet, like Asuri and Devi, the mix of it brings up the Rajoguna as well. Because when you're in the middle, you'll be like Rajoguna. You'll not be like totally just dormant, and you won't be in the full-fledged active state, which is Sattva Guni state. When I mean active, I don't mean just actions to the body. I mean active, like fully at peace, yet active. That is the Sattva Guni state. You'll be in the middle, whereby you don't have peace, which is part of the Tamoguni, but you'll have the action of the Sattva Guni. So you'll be in the Rajoguni state in that point.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Joe, you had a question.
No, it's fine. Actually, Steve's question kind of captured it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, Yogeshwar, can we go ahead?
Sure. So Krishna is continuing that asatyam apratishtamte jagadahuranishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kam hetukam. These things that are made within the manifest, we can all develop what the causes are and what the effects are. Krishna is saying, if you're only tied to that, it's not that that is wrong or that is untrue. It's meaning that if you're only tied to the cause and effect of the manifest, because the manifest will show cause and effect within itself, which we see in the world. If somebody does, if somebody wants to make up something like a new technology, they'll have to go through a process. So that process will be the cause and the effect will be seen. So if you're only known by the cause and the effect of what is around you, then what will happen is when you're tied to it and you don't know anything else that is apart from that, you sort of get so tied to it that this is the truth. There is nothing more than this. And your goals also get tied to what is here rather than what can be or what reality is. And what Krishna here is pointing out is, don't only think that reality is something that helps you or something that you can use and be tied to that concept of reality. And normally we tend to get tied to such concepts of reality, something that helps us or something that is useful to us. That is what reality is for us. Radha Krishna is broadening it, that something may be part of reality, yet it's not useful to you, like you can't use it, and it's not helpful to you to do anything. But if it's part of reality, can you accept it? Can you say that I accept this because it's reality, rather than just saying I accept it because it helps me in some category? And that's where the point of nishkama karma comes in, whereby you can do some type of action and it's not targeted towards a specific goal, because all your goals that you have made are of the manifest. They are made of cause and effect in this world. Can you go beyond the cause and effect of this world and do some nishkam karma, meaning action that is not driven by desires? And those desires are of this world, obviously, because those are the desires that we can have. So not having a goal related to such desires that are made up of this world, that is nishkama karma. That's where that concept of not having a desire in front of your karma comes in. Just concentrating on your karma, what it is meant for right now. And in where you can get to that karma, it is mainly in something that you are talented in or something that you have a hobby in. You get a glimpse of what that means. You don't need anything from the karma. Just the karma itself is satisfying. Just the action itself is fulfilling. You don't need anything ahead of it. You don't need an outcome out of it. So when you realize that something can exist in that way, whereby there is no outcome of it, or there is no usefulness to it, but just the fulfillment of it, that it is there, like truth may be there, something like that karma could be there. It may not bring an outcome in relation to this world at large, but what it brings out, the essence it brings out is that you can be with the truth at this moment and not expect something out of it. You can just be with it and accept it. Etam drishtimavashtavya nashtatmanolpabuddhayah prabhavantyugrakarmana kshayaya jagato hitaha. What happens is we normally get entangled with all these desires and all this cause and effect, that we only have that as our support. There's nothing else that we can lay upon. What happens then is alpa buddhaya, meaning our jnana, our vijnana, our knowledge is not so much vistrita, meaning it's not about everything. It's only about what helps us in particular times or what helps us in our daily lives. What helps us is where we are only. We are not accepting what is there for truth. What happens at that point in time is nashta atmana. Krishna is using this term specifically here, like nashta atmana, meaning you yourself are like destroyed. You're destroying yourself. Krishna knows, because he has talked about this in chapter 2, that there's no way the Atman can be destroyed. It's Ajar Amara. It's always there. That's the existence of self. Krishna is saying this Nasht Atmana in a way that you are going away from yourself. You're going away from the truth, from the ultimate. What you are not doing is going towards the ultimate. Nasht Atmana means you are never going to realize what you truly are. And not knowing the truth is like having the truth in front of you always and not even knowing it. It's like something that is so obvious, yet you do not know it. That is like you do not want to know it. That is where Nasht Atmana comes. If it is there, then you should know it and you should want to know it if the truth is there. If you do not know it, if you do not want to know the ultimate, then you're going away from yourself. You're also going away from what the truth is. Prabhavantyugra karmana kshayaya jagato hita. It's not that they won't do any type of karma. Rather, they will do all types of karma. They may feel aggressive. They may do even more karma than a person who is in Devi Sampat does. But what will it be? It will be Ugra Karmana. And what will those types of action lead to? Kshayaya Jagato Hitaha. They will always lead to the it will always lead to deteriorating of the world. The world meaning yourself and your surrounding. That which surrounds you is your world. And those types of actions will lead to you deteriorating everything around you, even by your thoughts and by your emotions. Everything around you will deteriorate. For example, when you are in anger, when you are in a state of anger, it's an emotion. What happens is not only you are in anger, but in essence, you're also transferring that anger towards somebody else, towards a person who is in front of you. By being in anger, you're transferring that anger towards that person. Because if somebody in front of you is in whatever state he may want to be, what you're saying is, you should also be angry because I am. And what happens there is, when you're transferring that anger, you're transferring something that is not good in quality. It's just that because I am in anger, you should also be in anger. And that's how you behave with that person. It's like, why aren't they understanding that I am in anger? It's that you should understand that why are you in anger? Yet anger is not a normal state to be in. Because anger, you can also see, it comes and goes. It's not something that can constantly stay. And such states should not be determining what type of person you are or how you should relate to other people. It should rather be the states which always stay, which are part of the truth, which are part of the ultimate, that should determine who you are or in which states you should stay. Kamamashritya dushpuram dambhamana mohat grihitva sadgrahan pravartante shuchivrataha. We have talked about almost all of these qualities within the Devi Sampad or above within the Asuri Sampad. So summarizing this verse, Kamamashritya dushpuram, what they will do is they'll hold on to those desires that can never be fulfilled. And desire is such a thing that never gets fulfilled. When you get to fulfillment of a desire, another desire arises out of that. And that constant loop of desires never allows them to be fulfilled. They will always be empty in between. You will always feel that there's something to get onto. And going into that loop of desires, you will never get to fulfillment. What will happen is, in that loop, you will be filled with hypocrisy and you will be filled with yourself as well, which is mana. And then what will happen is, you'll also be filled with mother. You'll be filled with all these just desires that are of another level, not just desires as well, but then those that you can't get away from. For example, there's stages of desires. We may desire something, but it's just a thought. Like, I want this? And then the next time you can say, no, I do not want this. And then there's also another stage of desires whereby when you get into that stage of desires, however much from the within you say, I do not want it, still you'll end up doing it. So that stage of desires is what mother is for. It's a stage of desires whereby you can't go back from it. Mohat grihitva sadgrahan pravartante shuchivrataha. You will be put back by those desires, which are called the moha. When you're pulled back by those desires, what will happen is you will be doing action in all ways. But what will happen is they won't be controlled by you. They will just be scattered out everywhere without the essence of where it should go. without the essence of the ultimate or the essence of the truth. They'll just go in all directions, wherever they feel like going. So what will happen is you'll become asuchi vrata. You'll become a person who is taking vows, who is taking who is saying statements, but then they will always go towards the false. They will always be scattered out, not going in one full stream towards the truth.
Yogeshwar, do you want to stop here? Yogeshwar, you're on mute.
Or should we do 11? Maybe we should do 11.
Let's do 11, yeah.
Okay, fine. Chintam parimeyam cha pralayantam upashritaha kamopabhoga parama etavaditi nischitaha. What happens to such people? It's not only that they are doing action, like I said, but they are also not having peace of mind. They're always distressed. Chintam aparimeyam cha pralayantam upashrita. They are always diving into, they're always absorbed into all this distress that is around them. And it's aparimeya. You can't have a definite amount of it. It's just so much. Pralayantam upashrita. They have so much distress within themselves that even though like the end of the world comes, the end of their distress will never come. That's how much distress they have. And what happens in such situations? They go into depression. They go into mental disabilities. Why is that happening? It's because they are going into the asuri sampad. They are going into the qualities that allow them just to change from the out rather than changing from the within. What do? Kamo pabhoga parama. They are always onto the desires that if this desire is met, I will be happy. If this desire is met, I will be happy. And those desires are normally from the outside. They're calling from the outside. What is happening in such states is when those desires are calling from the outside, you do not have a perspective of your own. Whatever the outside says, you'll just go and do it. And etavaditi nishchita, they're always onto that, they're fixated onto that this is all it is. There's nothing else within the world.
Wonderful. Folks, now it's time for questions or comments. Go ahead and type exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom. If you'd like to ask questions, you can ask questions about today, or you can ask questions about the description of the sattvic qualities as well. So or the daivic qualities that we discussed last time. So go ahead and type exclamation mark, raise your hand in Zoom if you have any comments or questions. We're going to start with Joe. Joe, go ahead.
You know, one of the things that I'm getting from this is you kind of see, and I know it's slightly different, but this kind of, if you're managing yourself to other people's desires, is this the idea of the hedonic treadmill, where you're constantly going to be, it's much deeper than that, where you're never going to be satisfied. And you're only managing yourself to your own personal desires and how destructive those things are actually can be. But there's this other aspect of it that's managing yourself. And I almost bring it back to last night, managing yourself to the world's expectations, as opposed to looking inwards. And I kind of almost get the feeling that it's in the individuation process that we were getting to last night with the 7 sermons. Anyway, those are just some comments that I had initially. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Joe. I think attachment versus not is the crucial distinction, because if you look through the entire Gita, it is the attachment, not about engaging in it, but attachment to desires, attachment to what you're holding on to, and being attached to it in a way where you lose track of the center, and worse, you say no to the center, and you refuse to say that you're saying that that's all it is, that's all the life is. Wonderful, thank you. Yogeshwar, would you like to add anything?
No.
Okay. Next up is Steve. Folks, go ahead and type !! to ask any questions or present any comments you might have. Steve.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I just want to run this by you, see if you kind of agree. You know, maybe it's just only my hope that I think I have it right, because I'm putting it together, you know, with other things too.
That's fine. Just make it short so that we can respond to it. Go ahead.
So I don't know if maybe you would agree with this, but basically, you know, life is short, and we're born into this earth, and we have, let's call it, certain karma to work out, right? And I'm just wondering, from what you're saying, if the key here is really to be focused on our karma and not get caught up into what society is pushing on us, or getting distracted, but staying with what we're meant to be, you know? Like if you're born as a dog or you're born as a cat, you're unlikely to really change that nature in this lifetime. So
sure. Let me have Yogeshwar respond to that. Yogeshwar, what does Gita say about this?
I really didn't get the question. If you could rephrase it for me.
Can you ask it as a question, Steve?
Sure. So I guess the question is really, is it just as simple as staying true to yourself, being who you're meant to be, and living that karma as best you can? Staying true to yourself and just trying to achieve what you need to achieve in this lifetime.
Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yeah. So we could say it is that, but then what happens is, when we want to be true to ourselves, most of the times we'll say that I am true to myself, but then inside we're not true to ourselves. Like, we're just going all around. When we want to make up a habit out of ourselves, we'll say, I want to do this. The next time, like, for example, waking up early, you will say that I want to wake up early tomorrow. When it comes to tomorrow, the same you will say that, oh, it's fine, I will just go on, I'll just sleep, I'll maybe wake up half an hour later. It's still early. So what happens there now, in between that? There is an aspect whereby, are you true to yourself as well? Not even being true to somebody else, but are you true to your own definition of what I am? We are not really true, because this is just like changing your habit. But what about you yourself? Because habits are something that you bring about from the outside. Yeah, even changing your habits which are from the outside is really hard. Then even accepting yourself for who you are, would that really be easy to do? So sometimes it is all about accepting who you are and being true to yourself. But what happens is, we can't even be true to our thoughts or be true to our habits. Then can we know that we are true to ourselves as we are? Or are we just even being hypocrite about it? that I am true to myself, yet I'm not.
I'll just add one thing. So the answer is yes and no. Fundamentally, the answer is yes. Is all Gita saying just be true to yourself? I think the answer is yes. And the heart of the question, and I want to compare it to Jung that we were discussing yesterday. Jung also says all you have to be is be yourself. You know, the 7 sermons to the dead, first sermon ends with that. All you're doing is striving to be yourself. Now, the difficulty is that you have to find your true self. And that is the journey. That is the process that Jung calls individuation. Ultimately, you're trying to get to the core of you, your Atma, and speak from there. And it's very easy to be fooled by your own thoughts about who you are, your own habits about who you are, your own social position about who you are. And you have to go beyond that and go towards your center and try to discover that. That's what Gita is all about. Steve, you had a quick follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of partly answering it too. Yeah. The only thing I'd throw in there is, and I think you probably agree, is just that whatever this true to yourself is, often it'll of course go against what your parents wanted for you or your friends, or might even be a little bit eccentric or different from what the rest of the people do, or maybe even some may question it this way, that way. But you yourself, I mean, as long as we're not really harming other people. Yeah.
Yes. So I would say a couple of things about that. The concept of yourself that Gita has, or concept of the self that Jung has, is not a subjectivist concept. It's saying that you have a certain nature, discover it. And that is actually completely non-contradictory with about harming other people. It holds that each person has that. And if you discover your own self, if you discover your own soul, if you discover your own Atma, if you discover your own self, then you are automatically respectful for the self of others. So that's how the system is. And I would encourage you to read Bhagavad Gita. It is really profound. Next up is going to be Brian and Penny. Brian.
So this, first of all, again, you've covered so much. I appreciate the last point you touched on is something that I don't know, it's been with me off and on and during my life, and but also recently. And maybe I'm not understanding you correctly, but this idea of distress and how do let me put it this way, can distress, or the feeling of distress that you talked about, can that be a valid way of engaging with the world and engaging with the periphery? And how do you know when you're engaged? If not, or if you want to somehow distinguish between what's, I don't even know the right word, an appropriate engagement or an inappropriate engagement that's triggered by distress, how do you distinguish? And there, I'll just say my guess would be that it's the things that you can have the most effect on, or conversely, the things that give you the most fulfillment. But this whole idea of distress as a basis, as a motivation for engaging in the world, I don't know, something that I've puzzled about over time, and again, I'm puzzling recently.
Yeah. So chintamo parimeyam cha. What we normally try to do is try to change things that are never going to be in our control. What should be done is change what can be changed within your control. And that doesn't lead you to aparimeya chinta, doesn't lead you to such distress that can never be resolved. But what leads you to such distress that can never be resolved is constantly thinking about something that you'll never be able to change in your whole life. Yet you're being put down by it. While that is happening, it is directing you to the point that that is not the truth. Because it is like the way of your body and your mind. It's the way that your body and your mind shows you that this is not the true way of doing things. It is like when you're hungry, your body shows you that you're hungry, you need food in yourself. That is a way your body contacts with you. It establishes a contact with you, communication with you. So distress or depression is a way your mind and body is telling you that this is not the right thing to do. There's something else that you should be doing, which is right. And that constantly knowing what your body is saying, what your mind is saying about you, is what you should in depth be knowing. Because if you do not know what your mind and body are telling you, then you're just going to use them however you like. And this is like when the communication is established, you realize that I am doing things wrong. It may be in the tamogun or the rajogun, which the asuri sampad takes you toward. Then I'm going towards asuri sampad, and that's why I'm having this result. What I should be doing is doing something else apart from this, where I'm getting peace. So look for those alternatives whereby you're getting peace of mind, where your mind is relaxed, where you can do something that is creative, yet it doesn't distress your mind. So going towards that is knowing yourself. And by going towards that, I don't mean that you're running away from the distress. Like, you should not run away from your action to do that. But what I'm trying to tell you is you should know your body and your mind in sync with yourself, what you are. Because what you are is manifested by your body and your mind. If you know it properly, knowing where it likes such things, where it doesn't like some things, then you know it's swabhava. When you know it's swabhava, then you can do more about it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Brian. I'm delighted to welcome Jyoti back. We've all missed you, and I was wondering whether you wanted to make any brief comments about how Bhagavad Gita helps people on vacations. So if you would like to do that at some point, you're welcome to do that. Go ahead and type exclamation mark. I will not put you on the spot, but if you would like to do that, you're welcome to type exclamation mark. Next up is Marco.
When it was said where like an action which is like fulfilling, but it doesn't have an outcome, like it, can you is it possible to give like an example? Like, is that just like finding enjoyment in like the small things, or
Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yeah, so when I talk about not having an outcome, I don't mean it doesn't have an outcome. I'm saying you don't look for the outcome when you're doing it. Because when you're looking for the outcome, you're going to look for your outcome in your desires. You're going to look for the outcome in your goals, which will be of the manifest. What I'm trying to say is, don't look for the outcomes. The outcomes will come automatically. So your eyes are not on the outcome. The outcomes will come automatically. In that context, you're doing the work that is supposed to be done in the right way, giving it your full strength without leaving any part of you void of yourself. So you're just in that action, in that type of action, fully. And when you're in there fully, you can do it in the best way rather than thinking about outcomes and then having a split between your energy.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jyoti, you can say whatever you want to say. Go ahead.
Okay, so your question was, how did Gita affect me during my vacation?
Yes.
Okay, there were two changes that I thought I had in me due to Gita. The critical thinking that I have to look at everything and not criticize, but like evaluate it. That was hidden in me. I was welcoming almost everything. I was open-hearted. I wanted to soak in everything, and very grateful that I got an opportunity to see such a beautiful part of the world. And then I was coming in contact with diverse people, and I remembered what you had said about Namaste. The God in me is greeting the God in you. And that brought a lot of livelihood liveliness in me and cheerfulness. And people responded to me in that manner too, reciprocated. So Gita has altered me to a great extent about the center and periphery. I just wanted to be very clean-hearted. I wanted to be very positive and soak everything in and give my best to everyone and get the best from everyone. So I guess that's about Gita.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Jyoti. Really, really appreciate that. See, what happens is that when you change your context, wherever you are, and then go to a new context like a vacation, sometimes you observe things about yourself more easily because the foil has changed and you see yourself, you can remember how you reacted previously. And this gives you, so that's why I wanted to ask you that. Thank you very much. All right, folks, any more questions or comments?
I just have one question from Yogeshwar.
Okay, Yogeshwar had to leave, so I can give you a kind of a quarter Yogeshwar answer, which may not be as good, and you can ask me.
I mean,
you can ask it again to Yogeshwar next time. Go ahead.
Okay, it's a comment. You know how he was saying that you cannot put an exterior which is different than your inside. You have to be honest, in other words. I know of human beings that when they are putting up something different than what it is inside, it starts rubbing in, and you become inside what you have tried to show outside. Like fakeness turns into reality, like it becomes a reality for you, and that's how you become later on in life, because you have been showing a different stance to the world, but you're not like that inside. But when you keep doing it, then you become like a real person, like the way you have been trying to show the world. I don't know.
Jyoti, that's a beautiful observation. I think it's absolutely true. Basically, this is the other side of the causality that you're talking about earlier. Just like if you pretend a lot on the outside, it will seep into you and change your inside. Just like when you change inside, it seeps outside and affects everything. And this is almost happens naturally. So absolutely wonderful observation. Thank you. Next up is going to be Connie. Connie, go ahead.
Yeah, sort of fake it till you make it on that last. But Marco's question and Yogeshwar's answer about the outcome. During listening to this tonight, I kept thinking about the movie, which I left the theater years ago in absolute awe, was Chariots of Fire. The contrast of the two runners from, wherever in England, and how they went to the Olympics, and they were two totally different types of men. It's a true story. I don't know if anyone ever saw that, but just saying one focused strictly on the outcome, and he was under great stress and distress, and he just had these goals and he had no joy in it. The other was a very well, religious, or I feel very work coming from the center, and did it from joy, and went on to the Olympics together. And I just kept thinking of Chariots of Fire. I don't know if anyone else did, but thank you for letting me speak. And good
Wonderful.
evening.
Great observation, Connie. I mean, you can think of it as karma yoga and bhakti yoga. It's kind of a dominant thing. So in the first case, it's all about, doing the work right. And he's putting everything in to do the work right. And that's what his focus is. Whereas the second person, he is focused on kind of the love that he has about doing the right thing. And that is shaping him. So it's the best way I can relate it to what we've been talking about is that both the paths lead you in the same direction, and they will actually coalesce together as you go on. All right. Any more final comments? So folks, I want to let you know that what we're doing now is we're doing Thursdays, we are looking at a work of Jung, which is heavily influenced by Indian thought. It is the best work of Jung, and we had an incredible meetup on that work. And the work is called The 7 Sermons to the Dead by Carl Jung. It is very short. You can read it or listen to it on YouTube in 40 minutes, but it is very deep. And we've got some really good Jungian folks, Jungian scholars and analysts who've been at it for decades to talk about it. There are lots of participants who are very familiar with Jung, who talk about it, and we are all discovering it together. So the YouTube is still processing the video, so I should have it up on 52 Living Ideas, hopefully by tomorrow. That's the first session. But the next session is going to be next sessions are going to be on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And we will continue to do Bhagavad Gita on Fridays. I think, both Yogeshwar and I discussed the pace at which we are going, and we are actually completely on target to finish Bhagavad Gita in about 3.5 to 4 months. We are on chapter 16. We are going to go up to chapter 18. Chapter 18 is like the culmination of everything. So it's a long chapter that actually brings together all the themes. So we're going to take quite a bit of time on the last chapter. So just wanted to let you know. I cannot resist, but so let me ask anybody who was there for the Jung meetup, could you share what you got from it very briefly, maybe 1 or 2 minutes? If you'd like to share what you got from it, because I think it's an important connection. There are a bunch of people, it's okay. Let me step back. Indian thought and Chinese thought is very different from the Western thought. And it takes a lot to actually grasp what the Indian mind is saying or what the Chinese mind is saying. And occasionally there are people from the West who not only get the core of what one of these traditions, like the Indian tradition, is saying, but is then able to turn around and express it in a form all their own, which is a Western form. Transcendentalists are the most prominent examples of people doing that for Indian philosophy. People like Emerson, Thoreau, and my favorite, Louis Sullivan. And Jung also, I think, is in that category. So he's bringing together so much. So that's why I like it, and I recommend it highly. But I would love to hear from Brian and Joe. Brian.
So I'm no means an expert, or even I haven't followed Jung during my lifetime. I've encountered him off and on episodically, found him very interesting, but not really understood well. And I must say, I got so much out of, I really feel like I was beginning to understand in just this one session yesterday. The Srikant was, as usual, brilliant in his selection of the text and presentation of the text, as well as his interventions. I got something out of what everybody said, but I have to say, I really got a lot out of what Muriel said and Jorge. Both are in the category of people who've spent decades on it, and they know how to say just the right things to unlock the doors.
Wonderful. Thank you. Joe, what's your brief take on Jung?
I mean, it was incredibly deep. I started to see the distinctions about, as you mentioned, between how it connects to specifically Gita, but I also started to see in the Tao Te Ching as well with some of the observations. But one of the deepest things that was the most important for me to take away from last night was George's take on or explanation that he's, that you're not necessarily speaking to the dead, that you're actually speaking to people that are still living, but they're actually not going through this through the individuation process. I forget, he called it objective. I forget exact, forgive me for, I forget the exact term he used. But that's going to be important actually as I listen to it going forward and actually start to connect some other dots together. I think it's going to be a fun exercise. I really do. But that was one of my major takeaways from last night.
Wonderful. Just connecting it up to what we discussed today. The dead is the Asuric,
Right,
who are attached to everything around them, and that's all they are saying. So they are limited by their own choice of into bondage to whatever is around them, and they are attached to it. And in the process, they are losing the entire freedom of living. So wonderful. Thank you very much, Brian and Joe. So hope you guys could make it to the next one. The next one, I just want to give you a preview. It has the best concept of that entire presentation. It's called Abraxas. I'll say only that much. It is really radically powerful concept. We are going to do Sermo 2 and 3. You have to listen to Sermo 1 as a background to get to 2 and 3. You don't need to go further than 3 because after that, it actually elucidates it in a much greater, the theme that has been built up is elucidated further. So just Sermo 2 and 3 is what we're going to cover next time. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. See you soon. Bye.